This is Locker Room Rewind, brought to you by Chunky Nelms Insurance. Here's Ryan Reynolds and Jaden Hart.
Hello everyone and welcome to Locker Room Rewind, brought to you by Chunky Nelms Insurance. Save up to 50% on your homeowners, auto, or life insurance today. Shop your rate with over 25 carriers. Call Chunky Nelms today at 325-223-0314 to talk with a live agent. Again, that number is 325-223-0314. Week 7 of the high school football season is in the books. Hello, everyone. I'm Ryan Reynolds. It's October 10th, 2020. And what a week for high school football in the Concho Valley. I don't know if the games were that good in general or if the games just felt really good due to the lack of action last week. But I'm still reeling from the games. We had 15 total matchups, 11 district games, 10 here in the area. We're going to recap a handful of them with help from some of the local newspapers from across Texas. Shout out more specifically to the San Angelo Standard-Times, guys. Support local journalism. It's extremely important. Subscribe. They put a lot of heart into their work. It's also hard for us TV people to really keep track of every game while working throughout the night. So their work helps us tremendously. It helps keep the community informed. So thank you very much. Support local journalism. Back to football, though. A lot of statements were made this week. Let's start with the 6A Central Bobcats. It was week 3 for those bigger schools, and the Bobcats had another tough test against third-ranked A&M Consolidated from Class 5A Division II. Central traveled down to College Station hoping for its first win of the season. However, though, they dropped a heartbreaker to the Tigers, 40-35. There was a lot to take away from that game, though. The Bobcats trailed 19-7 in the second quarter before coming back to take a 21-19 lead at the half. And one of those takeaways I was mentioning was something Central really needed to work on in this final non-district game, and that was cleaning up self-inflicted mistakes. That means pre-snap penalties, missed tackles, drop balls, turnovers, whatever you name it. It was really something Coach Davis really harped on when we spoke to him at the beginning of the week. And really looking back at this game, these Bobcats should be extremely proud of themselves. Yes, you lose 40-35. Yes, you fall to 0-3. But this game provided a ton of positive strides for this team. Central's defense, that allowed 48 points per game entering this week, actually had 2 defensive touchdowns, one coming on the opening series to set the tone, and the other coming on a strip sack in the third quarter. Those are some of the positives. Another one, and according to Coach Davis's quotes to the Standard-Times, after that game, it was getting the right players in the right places. That's another big key that this Central team really took a stride on in this loss against A&M Consolidated. One of those players being sophomore Tyler Hill at wide receiver. The Bobcats are missing key wideouts, and the connection between Hill and Malachi Brown really stood out in this game. It's promising, really. It really is. Brown and Hill, they connected on a 24-yard touchdown in the second quarter. They also found each other for a few big gains and some key first downs throughout this thing. I guess going back to putting the players in the right spots, Central's also discovering how to utilize some of their key athletes. I mentioned Brown. Coach Davis says Brown is one of the best athletes, if not the best athlete on this Bobcats team, and he showed that last night with his running ability. He scrambled for over 100 yards in a pair of scores, and this is just a message for those panicking about the Central Bobcats. Let's go ahead and let's take a step back, take a deep breath, and in the great words of Green Bay Packers quarterback Aaron Rodgers, RELAX, please relax, people. This was non-district play. These games didn't even count towards seeding. Those games begin next week against Abilene at San Angelo Stadium. And just looking at the progress this season, you can just tell that playing these tougher opponents, Shoemaker, Clemens, A&M Consolidated, it's really paying off. And it honestly did what it was supposed to do. It prepared this team. This team got a lot better and more prepared for the competition that they'll see in district play. And it showed where Central really needs to improve. Now, they can take this experience into the district opener next week, so on and so forth. I think Central is still the second best team in District 2 6A, and rightfully so, behind number 18 Midland Lee. The Bobcats, I still see them making the playoffs, obviously as the number 2 team. And Central fans, you'll start seeing very shortly the wins. Have some patience here as we enter district play next Friday. And that district opener, Central hosting rival Abilene, San Angelo Stadium next Friday, October 16th. 7 p.m. the kickoff time. This one actually Central's home opener as well as the district opener. So that's exciting for the San Angelo community. They've been on the road this entire season. They finally get a break from all that travel. Dave Campbell's, they have Central favored by 4 points into that game. Should be a really great one. Awesome rivalry. I'm excited to see the turnout for that game, really. Central fans, if you're watching, go ahead and drop a Go Bobcats in the comment section to show your school spirit. If you're watching the live webcast in general, comment your favorite team's name that you're supporting. Show that school spirit. We're lucky to even be playing football with what's going on right now. So that should be a really exciting one. We'll preview it on Wednesday's Locker Room Rewind preview show. Moving to Class 4A and the Lakeview Chiefs. It's really been a stellar storyline to follow this season. I know the Chiefs started 3-0 last year, but this team is just different, and you can really see that with the product that they're putting out on the field. Lakeview coming off that 49-20 win over Fabens last week, had another long travel game. They went up to Hereford last night for a date with the White Faces. Hereford out near Amarillo. That's a combined 5-hour trip to Hereford. Combine that with the travel from Fabens last week. That's 10 total hours of traveling the last 2 weeks. That's really exhausting for the Chiefs. This time it wasn't a good road trip home for Lakeview. They lost to Hereford 34-15. Those 15 points, the second lowest this season behind the 12 points they scored in a loss to Snyder in week 4. I don't know what the White Faces did, but they did it right, and the scoreboard really says that. And before you guys go, duh, Ryan, Hereford won. What are you talking about? Just look at the score, 34-15. Yes, Lakeview was averaging nearly 41 points per game entering this contest, and Hereford held them to just 15 points. That's what I mean when I say that. The White Faces, they drove 98 yards for the first score of the game. Lakeview responded with an Albert Rodriguez 25-yard touchdown pass to Austin Bandy. I mean, that's a shocker, right? It's not like we've seen that all season long. Hereford then led 27-7 at the half and 34-7 entering the fourth. This thing was just really all White Faces for the entire game. The Chiefs didn't find the end zone again until the final minutes of the game, capping off an impressive 99-yard touchdown drive that ended with a 1-yard score by the junior running back Josh Torres. Hereford was 2-3 entering that game, with all 3 of their losses coming to some pretty quality opponents. Bushland, Lubbock Estacado, and Andrews, who's the clear-cut favorite to win District 2 4A over Lakeview. I think right now the Chiefs, kind of like Central in their district, are the second best in District 2 4A. And guess what, guys? We finally have some sort of measuring stick between the two. Andrews, they beat Hereford 51-7. Lakeview, again, losing to Hereford 34-15. Take it for what it's worth. Andrews and Lakeview, they face off in 2 weeks on October 23rd. Maybe that one's for the district championship. It's a possibility. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. This Chiefs team, they still have a ton of work to do. And those district games start next week at San Angelo Stadium against Fort Stockton. This one actually a Thursday night football game. So you high school football fans out there around the area, you guys have a chance for some double dipping action at San Angelo Stadium Thursday. You can go out and see Lakeview take on Fort Stockton to open district play. And then the very next day, you guys can head back to SAISD Stadium to watch the Bobcats open district against Abilene. Good chance to watch some football. Kickoff for both of those games set for 7 p.m. Lakeview opens as an 11-point favorite, according to Dave Campbell's, against the 1-5 Fort Stockton Panthers. Again, we'll preview that one as well on our Wednesday preview podcast. If you aren't subscribed to the CVHP Locker Room Rewind podcast feed, go ahead and do that. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Stitcher. Subscribe to it. Just go to one of the apps, search CVHP Locker Room Rewind. Subscribe to it. You can also turn on notifications, so whenever we post a preview or a recap episode, you guys can get a notification on your mobile device, and then you can go ahead and watch it and listen to our thoughts. And we do some nice previews. We put a lot of information in there, and it's just good to stay informed. And again, thank you, local journalism. Support it. Again, preview episodes every Wednesday. We recap it the day after on Saturdays. Recommend you guys do that if you want to keep tabs on what's going on around the area when it comes to high school football. Central loses to A&M Consolidated. They fall to 0-3. Lakeview loses to Hereford 34-15. The Chiefs are now 4-3. Still a lot of football left to be played for both schools. There's still a lot to talk about here on Locker Room Rewind. We're going to go ahead and take a quick break, though. Here's a word from our local sponsor. Welcome back to Locker Room Rewind. Some scores from around the area. I mentioned there were 11 district games. Number 8 Wall opened District 3-3A Division I with a dominant win over TLCA 72-0. Sonora picked up its second straight win, opening District 2-3A Division II with a 28-13 win over the former undefeated Ingram Moore. That one, actually the Warriors' first loss of the season. Congrats to those Sonora Broncos staying in that district. Bangs beat Grape Creek 62-0. Ballinger, of course, As we talked about, they had that district game against Brady canceled due to the Bulldogs dealing with some COVID-19 related issues. The Bearcats, however, were still given that 8-point win due to the district forfeit rules. Ballinger, they actually found a replacement game and beat Sunray last night, 46-12 out in Lubbock. So the rare 2 wins in 1 week for Ballinger, pretty strange. But the Bearcats adding 2 wins to that win column. They sit at 6-1 now and will face Grape Creek next Friday. Out in District 14 2A Division 1, Mason, they're really starting to pick things up. The Punchers getting their 3rd straight win last night, beating Harper 67-0. Ozona also picking up a district win against Centerpoint 36-0. District 14 2A Division 1, I still think is the most predictable district in the area. The 1-2 in that district is just so clear cut, that being Mason at number 1 and Ozona at number 2. We'll see those two face each other in the final week of the regular season, most likely for the district championship. So keep your mind on that. Keep your eye on it. Mark it on your calendar. Do whatever you want with it. Mason and Ozona, final week of the regular season, potential district championship game. Moving down a division to District 14 to a Division 1, 8th ranked Christoval, number 8 Christoval. Now they moved up 1 spot in the rankings despite being off last week. They went from 9 to 8. They handed Rock Springs their first loss of the season, 32-20. Christoval now winners of 5 straight games. They sit at 5-1 and will host winless Menard next week. El Dorado handled Miles 35-6. And then Junction rounding out that district, beating Menard 73-6. There was a lot of good 6-man football action as well. Number 2, Sterling City. They beat Bront to open District 8 1A Division 1 62-0. The Eagles moved to 7-0 and are now the only remaining unbeaten in the Concho Valley. Why, you ask? Because in District 14 1A Division 1, something happened. Something that we kind of felt was a possibility after last week's results, and that's Water Valley beating Erie County 62-16. And what a game from the junior Cannon Wise. He rushed for 317 yards, 8 touchdowns. Yes, that stat line for Cannon Wise is real. 317 yards, 8 touchdowns. He also led the Wildcats defense with 8 tackles. The guy was an absolute wrecking ball. The stat line from the Standard Times is absolutely insane. So Water Valley, get this, Water Valley rushed for 371 total yards. And as I just said, Wise accounted for 317 of those, but he also handled all but 5 of his team's 30 carries. The literal definition of a workhorse. I saw that and was absolutely mind blown. The Wildcats didn't even attempt a pass last night, and they didn't need to when the rushing attack was working so well. And then on the defensive side, you also have to credit Water Valley on that front. They held Erie County to just 163 total yards, which is a great accomplishment in the high, fast-paced game of 6-man football. In my opinion, though, not that it really matters, this game really shows you just how valuable it is to play tough competition during non-district. This was only Water Valley's 4th game this season. They had a delayed start due to COVID-19, but listen to this non-district schedule. They opened their season against number 1 Westbrook, then played former number 3 Borden County. Then they beat a tough Highland team who was averaging 60-plus points per game, held them to just 32, and then the momentum of all of that carried into this district opener. Erie County, can't really say the same. I think their toughest test of the season, not counting this one against Water Valley, was Blackwell last week, who's a 1A Division 2 school, not to discredit the talent on Blackwell. They're a really good football team, but I think it's something when your greatest competition through 6 weeks is a whole division lower. I'm not hopping on the overreaction train about this loss for Erie County, and honestly, I don't think anyone should. The Hornets, they're extremely well coached with Don Cofell. They have some extremely good guys on that team as well who are really coachable and really athletic and talented. I expect them to bounce back next week against Paint Rock. Great win for Water Valley, though. You pick up your second straight win. You improve to 2-2, and you knock off an undefeated along the way. It could be the defining win for this Wildcat team because you just know the confidence is soaring through the roof now. And taking a look at the rest of their schedule, maybe there's a chance they can win out. Water Valley has very best next week at home. They're a 26-point favorite in that one. Then they travel to Eden for another really big test. The Bulldogs are back and healthy. Don't let their 2-5 record fool you. Then Water Valley wraps up the season with a home game against Paint Rock. All winnable games in my eyes. And this is what makes high school football so fun. I'm so excited. District 14 1A Division I is up for grabs. Who wants it more? We'll find out in the coming weeks. Some more scores that I haven't mentioned yet before we wrap up today's show. Eden, we just talked about them. They shut out Very Best 45-0. They snap a 5-game losing streak. Eden back and healthy. It's good to see that. And Paint Rock, they get blanked by Lomita 53-0. Like I said at the top of the show, Week 7 was a really fun week. I think we learned a lot more about what these teams are really made of. And now that we're in district play, it's time to grab some popcorn and watch everything unfold. Thank you all for joining me today on Locker Room Rewind. We'll be back on Wednesday to preview the Week 8 matchups, as well as Central's Week 4 matchup against Abilene as those Bobcats open district play. Don't miss that episode. Subscribe to the CVHP Locker Room Rewind podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Stitcher. Also, don't forget to visit ConchoValleyHomepage.com for all the highlights and scores. A ton of great content on that website. You can also download the Concho Valley Homepage app. You can take all the news on the go. That does it here for this week's Locker Room Rewind. Everyone have a great weekend.